Yeah.
I mean, I'm certain there's still sexual assault happening.
For sure.
It's just connecting with the folks who need the services becomes more difficult when schools aren't involved.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Have there been any kind of new issues that have arisen around access to sexual assault kit exams for survivors in your state during the pandemic?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Really early on, we had discussions with our programs around the state about this and whether, if there were challenges they were seeing as far as people being allowed access to hospitals and where it was happening, where support folks being let in.
Yeah.
I don't remember anyone saying that they were having challenges, but I also don't remember anyone saying that they've actually been seeing survivors of sexual violence.
Right. Right. Mm-hmm.
And part of the challenge with Idaho specifically is that we don't have any standalone rape crisis centers, and so our programs are all domestic violence centers who also serve sexual assault survivors.
Okay.
But you can see the challenges there with I've been raped. I'm not going to go, I wouldn't necessarily go to I'm trying to think of, a program that says it's the domestic violence center.
For sure.
Or whatever, you
yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that...
I mean, I do know, that if people present in an emergency room, they're not allowed to have anyone come in the door with them at this point. So I'm sure that's actually having an impact on folks.
Yeah.
And when they're getting, when they seek care or a forensic exam.
Right. Right. And are all your forensic exams, are those all done in hospital, or are there some that are in community-based centers?
There are a couple of community-based centers around the state, and I actually can't speak to the whole state. I'm not certain, but I know it's spread out, because I know locally here, so I'm in the main population base of Boise, and they're actually all rerouted back to a community-based center, like a building downtown that's much more friendly than the hospital.
For sure, yeah.
But I think around most of the states, they're completed in hospitals.
Okay. Right. So it's really, would you say it's in more urban areas where there is that community-based model?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, very different than up here where it's all in hospital, Canada, but yeah, that's interesting.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. So I understand there's been some work that's been done around the issue of untested rape kits or rape kit backlogs in Idaho. Can you tell me a little bit about the work that's been done? Where you're at with it?
Yeah. So, hold on just a second, sorry. Yeah, so I would say this happened while I was at the university. That board member that I mentioned, who was a state representative at the time, saw an opportunity to better, that our kits could be processed better. There was an opportunity there. And so she proposed some legislation that essentially, she worked with the Idaho State Police, their forensic lab, who is awesome. Awesome.
Okay.
And they created a system to where sexual assault kits could be tracked online. So they were each given a unique identifier number that was given to the person whose evidence was collected, and so they could always see where their kit was and what was going on with it.
Right.
So when this happened, when the system went live, I believe part of the legislation was actually that every year then the state police would provide a report to the legislature about sexual assault kits and how they've been, what's going on with them. So I know for a period of time there were a number of kits
Right.
And we don't have the number of rapes reported. And those that are reported, often nothing happens with them. They aren't even told to go get a forensic exam. Or people choose not to get it because it's super invasive.
Yes. Yes.
If they're even reporting. So if we didn't have, where some places have, 20,000 kids sitting around or something, we might have had 500. And those got worked through because part of this original legislation and then amendments thereafter have also sought funding for that forensic lab to hire new DNA analysts to make sure that we can process both what we had outstanding, but then make sure that as they come in that they're getting processed in a timely manner.
Right.
And for some reason, this is an issue that the state feels like. In the state, I mean our legislators who are never like to spend money on anything actually are pretty supportive of this overall.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's like a feel-good, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's very strange because they've been in support of this, but then when you actually try to pass laws around sexual assault, they get really worried that, people being falsely accused and all those lying women and all the things you see around sexual assault.
Right.
So it's interesting how this has happened.
Yes, for sure. Why do you think that there is that kind of disconnect between their support for the backlog efforts, but not so much for survivors or anything related to sexual assault?
So I haven't thought about this so much, but I think off the top of my head, there's a couple of things. It's really hard in general theory to say you don't support people who have been sexually assaulted, right?
Right.
Broadly, in theory.
Yeah.
So I think that this is an easy way to show support of this without any, facts getting involved that could complicate things.
Yes.
So there's that. There's still, Idaho is very law and order based, and so there's the belief that if you are really assaulted, you would go to police right away, and you would obviously go get your evidence collected, right? So there's support for that because this is, in many people's minds, a way of proving that an assault actually happened.
Yes.
And then 3, it's supportive law enforcement processes, which the state is very, very supportive of law enforcement, and the our criminal justice system is the only way that you should be dealing with issues around gender violence.
Right. Yeah. And would you say there's a history to that particular orientation, or where does that come from?
Oh, we're just it's probably, besides maybe Alabama, the most conservative state in the nation.
Right.
So, really, if you look long term, it's probably rooted in just racism and has just continued.
Right.
For people's mindset. Yeah.
Yep, for sure. So, what's your sense of why rape kit backlogs have been such a common issue and have been sort of caught so much of the media's attention in the last, I don't know, I could say decade or so? Where is that coming from? What's your sense of that?
Well, it's a common issue because there's a fundamental disbelief of women who report sexual assault. And so there is no priority put into testing kids. I think that's universal, at least in the United States.
Right.
Maybe around the world.
Yeah.